You know his words will get you farther than the film will ever go. Give him a moment of your time, he'll tell you what's wrong with the show. He knows what's good, what's bad, what's really bad. His face is just a sign. Say hello to Confused Matthew.
Hi folks, are you guys ready to go ape? I'm not. So I've laid a few rules down in the past of what should happen when you try to resurrect something old like a remake or a reboot. The first is that a good remake or reboot should give people who haven't seen these things a reason to maybe want to check them out, and the second is that it should give people who have seen these things something that they haven't seen before. This film fails both of these tests because, unfortunately, this is one of those remakes that lives up to the title in all literalness. It's just the original King Kong again, except with needlessly overextended scenes that drag on and on and on. If you've seen the original King Kong, then not only have you seen this film already, but you've seen it far more streamlined than this. In fact, that point actually introduces a new rule for remakes that I would like to lay down right now. This is rule number 1. Big time rule number 1. You should never try to remake a film that was already good. Why do filmmakers do this? What is the point of this? I can understand trying to remake films that didn't go over so well the first time. Hell, who wouldn't want to see the Wachowski brothers call a do-over and try to make good sequels to The Matrix? But all of the movies that are remade these days were fine the way they were. I already love the films these remakes are based on. Now you're telling me that I have to start all over again and accept something new on completely different terms, and I can't help but compare it to the originals, and it's never gonna be that good. What is the freaking point? Now, I don't know how good the original King Kong was, but it's already a classic. It has reached its iconic peak. You don't need to remake something like this. Peter Jackson, if you want to have a do-over on something, how about trying to remake the freaking Frighteners? Confused Matthew Frighteners review coming this Halloween. This movie gives us nothing that the original film didn't already offer, except for maybe special effects, but who cares about that? It's essentially the same story, it's essentially the same characters, it's essentially the same basic situation. The only difference is, it's a lot fucking longer. It's so long and tedious that it makes you pray for the original. The 1933 King Kong was about 100 minutes, which is pretty standard running time. This monstrosity is 187 minutes. 3 hours of our lives that we're never gonna get back. And what does this film do in 3 hours that the other film didn't do in less than 2? Nothing. Basically, they just take all the scenes from the original King Kong, double them, and overextend the fuck out of them. It makes me want to bang my head against the wall. It's the same movie, just more. And the worst part is that the formula that it repeats is beyond dated. There are moments in this film that might have worked in 1933, but in 2005 they were trite and unimpressive, which is why I don't understand why Peter Jackson did it this way. But I'll get to that as we go. I'll start the review now, but trust me, this will not end well. Now this movie moves in 3 stages: crew going to the island, encountering King Kong and friends on the island, and dealing with King Kong in the city. Each stage has its own unique set of problems, and we'll go through them one by one. And the first act of the film has the following problem. It's all one long, boring dick tease. I have been fighting like hell not to use the term dick tease since I started doing these reviews, and you're just gonna have to forgive me for that one. We begin in 1932. That's right, Peter Jackson needlessly set this thing in 1932, which means that this is a period piece. Now, the original King Kong was set in 1932 because it was 1932. That wasn't a period piece, it was made in a time and of a time. The story of King Kong is universal. It's not period specific. It would have been the same difference if he had set this in modern times. The story would have been the same, and setting this remake in 1932 was not only completely unnecessary, but it gives Peter Jackson the added responsibility of making us believe we're in a specific decade. Unfortunately, the idea of this being a period piece is just shot in the foot from almost frame one. The whole city of New York looks like a big special effect. I'm supposed to believe I'm in 1932, but this time period is presented so terribly that I think this might be the worst period piece that I have ever seen. This doesn't feel like 1932. It feels like a bunch of actors in costume pretending that it's 1932. If you want to remain so true to the original movie that you set this in that time, that's fine, but it's your responsibility to make that time period believable, and this isn't. By the time they all get on the boat, I completely forgot this was supposed to be set in the 30s. I really did. My subconscious just assumed they were in 2005 until they got back to New York. As a period piece, this thing just sucks. Example, one of the first opening scenes where the down-on-her-luck, out-of-work actress has the following conversation.
This gig ain't the Palace, you understand? Ask for Kenny K. Tell him I sent you. Just play the date, take the money. Forget you was ever there.
Forget you was ever there. Wow, what an amazing period-specific delivery. You're fooling everyone. I mean, honestly, did that fool anyone into thinking we're in 1932? Really? The way that line was delivered sums up this problem with the film altogether. It all feels like a bunch of people from 2005 pretending they're in 1932. I mean, I feel like I could do that just sitting here. Forget you was ever there, sweetheart. Wow, we're in the 1930s now! So with this woman out of work, we're then introduced to Jack Black as Carl Denham, a filmmaker notorious for shooting in some pretty wild locations. Now, I'll just come right out and say that Jack Black does nothing for me as a comedian, but that's kind of like saying that cream soda does nothing for me as a soft drink. It all comes down to taste. He's good at what he does, I suppose, he's just not for me. But what baffles me about this casting choice is that it just feels so damn random. They really could have plugged anyone into this role. Usually when you give a mainly serious role to a comedic actor, it's for some sort of purpose, tapping into a side of them that they don't usually show. And this actually works surprisingly well most of the time. Robin Williams, Nathan Lane, and Jim Carrey have all given very good serious performances, but this character is so stock and played so stock that having Jack Black play it is just unnecessary. I would expect more from such an unusual casting decision. But this character is and does all sorts of things that we have seen before. The Weasley type who uses underhanded manipulation to get what he wants. The studio just scrapped his next film, but Denham makes a break for it before they can finalize that decision. He's determined to get this film made. He has a boat waiting for him and a crew, but now he just needs a leading lady. So you can guess what comes next. He convinces Anne, the out-of-work actress, to participate in the film, making her think that this is a big production instead of a production that has already technically been cancelled. And the rest you can pretty much guess for yourself as well. It's all completely routine, with Carl trying to keep up the ruse and scrambling to keep everyone on board for the project. From the moment the film starts to the time the boat leaves, it's essentially one long roundup scene, getting all of the characters together and setting off. The problem is that we don't get to know these people as characters. We know them as roles. Anne is the out-of-work actress, the boat captain is the salty boat captain, Adrian Brody's character is the writer here against his will. Lather, rinse, repeat. We spend so much time just getting this damn boat moving that you pray to God they're gonna go somewhere soon. And boy do they not. Only two things happen during this voyage. They establish a budding romance between Anne and Jack, and as Carl tries to get the boat to some mysterious island to film there, everyone on the boat explains how mysterious and dangerous it is. I want to make something clear. Just those two things comprise the first third of this film. And for what? Jack and Anne are not interesting enough to carry this much of the movie, and the constant babble about how terrifying and forbidden Skull Island is just beyond frustrating. Basically, every moment with these people on the boat is just a drag. I mean, what is King Kong about, really? It's about a giant ape, right? Okay, gorilla or monkey or whatever. It's about a giant ape. So what are we all waiting to see? We're waiting to see King Kong. So every moment that they drag this out, every second spent with them just talking about getting to this place breeds nothing but impatience. I mean, what are they really setting up here? This is a remake. We already know what's waiting for us on the island. Just freaking get there already. It is impossible to describe how long this drags out. Everything that happens on the boat is all completely by the numbers. Bits of the movie are filmed on the ship, actress and screenwriter fall for each other, and everyone goes back and forth on the issue of the island. They're gonna go, they're not gonna go, Carl's jig is up, Carl's jig isn't up. And what makes this bad is the fact that this whole first third of the film doesn't make us care about the characters because they're only setting up one or two situations. These people may as well be anybody caught up in all this. And if the only thing that matters to the writers at this point is the situation, then why drag this out further than it needs to be? Just fucking do it. I am racking my brain trying to think of another movie where the setup alone was the first third of the film. This movie is like a clown car for nothing. I have never seen so much nothing crammed into the first third of a film in all my freaking life. And if you think I'm exaggerating about how overextended this part of the film is, consider this. In the original King Kong, the beginning of the film to the end of the voyage on the boat took about 25 minutes. In this film, the exact same scenes of the exact same film take up the first hour. And we have 2 fucking hours to go. So after bullshitting around on the boat and wasting most of the audience's time, they finally arrive on the damn island. I wonder what could be on that thing. Sure hope it's not boring and stupid. Alright, so they finally arrive on the island, and almost immediately they are ambushed by the natives. So now you're thinking, oh good, they're finally just gonna get on with this. But you'd be wrong, because immediately after the attack, everyone gets back on the boat and tries to leave. No, you just got here! It took over an hour, fuck! The natives have other plans, though, as one of them pole vaults onto the boat. Oh my god. He captures Anne again, and the rest of the crew have to go back and save her. Now, how the hell did that guy get her off of the boat? He doesn't have his pole anymore. Oh, he swam her out? Damn, that guy is a jack of all professional Olympic sports. So we have now reached the point in the film where they finally start to show us King Kong. So now I'm like, alright, bring on Kong. They wasted a lot of time on the boat, but now we're gonna see the big thing. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's see the awesome Kong that, that's it? I mean, yeah, it's a CGI ape, but somehow I was expecting something more than this. What the hell? And right here is when I realized what this movie's ultimate problem is. The original King Kong became famous mostly for its new special effects. No one had really seen anything like this before. There was a lot of this in The Lost World about 10 years earlier, but that was just a warm-up for what people were going to see in this film. The effects were so outstanding for the time that they actually had to warn people not to see this movie if they had a heart condition. That seems so silly today when you look at it, but that is exactly the point. And this is just a problem that I constantly run into with films that try to make it all about the special effects. Special effects today are kind of like flying today. Flying used to be a novel event. It was a privilege. People dressed up for it. But today, it's just become a routine part of life. Not for me, of course. I have a tremendous fear of flying, but to the average person who isn't a complete phobic wuss, it's something you don't even really think about anymore. Special effects are just that. They were this new and amazing thing in the 20s and 30s because, well, so were movies. But this is the 21st century. We see special effects all the time. They have now become as routine and uneventful as taking a flight from San Francisco to Cleveland. The time has well passed for people to be really impressed by something like this. So the only thing this movie could potentially have going for it was just a dud. What made the original King Kong new and exciting for its time is just routine and dull in our time. It's a big CGI gorilla. Who cares? I've seen that before. And this problem alone makes the entire second act of the film one of the worst experiences I have ever had as a moviegoer. The whole middle part of the film is routine and dull. Anne gets captured by Kong, and the party goes off to search for her. And along the way, they find things similar to what the original cast found in that movie, but Peter Jackson had to needlessly add more to it. The original film had a brontosaurus attack in it. Well, our film's going to have 1 million brontosauruses and raptors, and they're all going to be running after these guys at once. Not only is that unimpressive, but the scene is absolutely ridiculous. We have people running away from the dinosaurs who somehow are running just as fast as the dinosaurs are. Either these human beings are running at superhuman speed, or these dinosaurs are just jogging along, man. Second, the dinosaurs look terrible. Again, the dinosaur effects were groundbreaking for 1933, but this was 2005. We've seen this in 3 Jurassic Park films by now. Hell, the Jurassic Park sequel was almost 10 years old when this film came out, and it still looked better than this. Some of these dinosaurs look downright hand-drawn. Oh, did that guy just kick that dinosaur in the face? Come on! Oh, awful. So while this dino attack is taking place, Anne and Kong basically just sit around together, and God almighty, get used to that. Kong is getting a bit ornery, but Anne manages to tame the beast through the power of vaudeville. I'm not kidding. I'm not fucking kidding. Wow, Kong is a way more forgiving critic than I am. Oh, maybe not. So from this point on, it's all just a bunch of people walking around the island and getting attacked by things. And it's so long and repetitive that the first time I watched this, I honestly had to fast forward a lot of this. They're getting attacked along the way. I get it. Move on. God, first they're doing nothing on the boat and you just want them to get to the island, then they're doing nothing on the island and you just want to fucking go home. The original Kong had a lot of attack scenes, but once again, pretty much just to show off the groundbreaking effects for the time. And once again, this film has to take what was groundbreaking then and overextend it. Original Kong had a few dino attacks? Well, we're gonna make everything attack these guys. Giant insects, bat attacks, man-eating vagina things. All completely pointless scenes of self-contained action that have nothing to do with the plot and only serve to overextend the film. I feel like I'm making the same point over and over again, but so is the movie. So as these guys are attacked, Anne and Kong are also attacked in a scene mirroring the famous Kong vs. T-Rex scene. And once again, Jackson has to overextend the fuck out of it. We're gonna have 2 T-Rexes fight him now. How about that? No! What the fuck for? You think just adding more shit to the same basic scene is gonna make this better? It just makes it fucking longer! And it also makes this fucking stupid. You've got 2 T-Rexes that are putting themselves in mortal danger to try to eat something the size of a bland appetizer to them. Even when they fall off a cliff and are dangling in midair, they still try to eat this girl. What is she, covered in dino-loving sex sauce or something? You'd think they'd be like, fuck this, man, I'll just try to find a bigger and easier meal someplace else. But no, they just have to have some scrawny blonde. Yum yum. So, fuck. Eventually Kong is subdued, and after this long, slow, boring, pointless, eventless second hour on the island, they're ready to cart him off to New York and present him as the 8th wonder of the world. So this is the problem with the majority of this film. The original King Kong became a classic because it was groundbreaking for its time. Trying to do this all again in the 21st century is just so damned pointless. It should be a foregone conclusion that what was groundbreaking and thrilling in 1933 has now become routine and just plain ordinary, but somehow Peter Jackson just doesn't get that. Now, just about everything that happened in this film so far was in the original King Kong, more or less. But at the time of the remake's release, that was 70 years ago. Filmmaking and storytelling have changed since then, and what was acceptable in a film in the 1930s has become completely unacceptable in a modern film. I mean, some things you just don't question in 1933, because it's a moving picture, it's new. The logic doesn't really matter, we're all just coming to see something move on a screen. But in 2005, we're all just a little more conscious of the logic you're presenting in your film. So this remake just begs the question of how the fuck they got that big fucking thing onto the fucking boat! So they get the big ape back to New York somehow, and now the only possible thing that this movie could do right is showing us the ape ransack the city. At this point, it's probably not going to be all that great, but it's all we have left. This was admittedly the best part of the film for me, but don't go taking that as a compliment to the film. At this point, my expectations were so low that I was expecting something lackluster, which is exactly what this third act is. And that's when the big ape actually does something. Once they get it back to New York, we don't go right into what they're doing with Kong. We have to sit through bits of two completely off-the-point Broadway acts, one of which Jack wrote for Anne. This is supposed to be getting back to the issue of Jack and Anne being an item, but what the hell for? That issue was dropped over an hour ago. We saw their budding romance in the hour we spent on the ship, then the film was about dinosaur attacks for an hour, now we're supposed to be getting back to their romance again. So you've got one huge piece to this puzzle missing. If the middle part of the film isn't building the romance that was established in the first part, then this just doesn't work. Gee, maybe they should have done something in the second act other than have these people get attacked by special effects. So Anne and Jack are... who cares? Carl has brought Kong to the masses and shackled him to a big ape trap on the stage, and he's ready to sleaze his way back to the top. Unfortunately, Kong has other plans as he finally breaks loose after realizing the girl they presented him was not Anne. Apparently, Kong has developed a bit of an attachment to Anne specifically after, all their sitting around for scenes on end. Now, here's the weird thing. Kong is mindlessly rampaging, destroying everything in his path, until he notices Jack. From that point on, he singles Jack out specifically and tries to beat the life out of him. Now, the way they set this up is just bizarre. The two of them face each other down like two rival lovers who are after the same girl, which is really unsettling because one of them is a human screenwriter and the other is a 25-foot gorilla. This is one of those elements in the story that just doesn't play well. It comes off as almost unsettling and creepy. This continues for the rest of Kong's ape escape too. Kong is out tearing ass through New York looking for his woman, and I'll admit that some of this was kind of funny. I like how he's grabbing any random blonde he finds and picks them up, then when he realizes it's not her, he's just like, meh, and he just chucks them away. He's not really hurting them, he doesn't really want to hurt them, he's just disinterested. That was pretty good. But then we get back to Kong versus Jack as he manages to get a hold of a cab and steals it, and once again Kong is thrashing random people and things until he sees Jack and he specifically singles him out again. This just feels too much like two dudes fighting over a girl, and as one of those dudes is a giant member of another species, it really makes the tone of this uncomfortable. It also gives us another problem with this film being set in 1933, as Jack does a fancy bit of stunt driving to get away from Kong. I don't think those old cars handled this well. This just looks silly. So Jack is royally fucked until Anne comes to the rescue, and if you thought you were creeped out before, boy howdy. They go ice skating, or ice scooting at least. I mean, what the hell is this? Is this a date? What kind of relationship are they trying to establish here? Because it's coming off like bestiality. I mean, I absolutely believe that Peter Jackson was trying to make this innocent, but the way he's doing it just comes off as wrong. Maybe if they had used their time on the island to make Kong and Anne bond over something other than staring at each other and her dancing for her life, this could have been a bit clearer. But it almost seems like he's treating her to a night out on the town to try and get into her pants. It's just weird. Unfortunately, their little love fest is broken up by gunfire, and we lead into the famous climbing of the Empire State Building scene. Once again, same scene, just more of it. This time the female lead is going just a bit more willingly than the original, but the principle is the same. Kong climbs, Kong smashes, and the planes eventually take him down. Again, in 1933, I'm sure this was all very exciting, but in 2005, watching this thing swat at airplanes for 20 minutes is just a bit dull. And in the meantime, we have this scene that I just don't get. Jack is like, fuck, I've gotta get up there. He's so adamant about getting to the top of the building that he gives a soldier a karate kick, and what does he do when he gets up there? Nothing, he just kinda looks at Anne for a second. So Kong takes a really long time to die, and Anne is broken up about it for no reason, since all they've ever done together was stare at each other and scoot on the ice, and Jack Black delivers the famous line, "It wasn't the airplanes, it was beauty killed the beast." No, it was the airplanes. Now, I'll give Peter Jackson this. I don't think he remade this movie just to make money off of the name. He believed in this project, and he put a lot of his heart into this. Jackson loved King Kong since he was a kid, and it was that love for this film that made him want to do this. But this movie gives us every big problem with remakes that you can think of. It just sits there as another version of the film. There's no point to this. For the rest of time, when people think of King Kong, they're not going to think about Peter Jackson's film. They're going to think about the original, because that was the important, groundbreaking film. This is just that movie done again in a time when it's nothing special. I've talked a lot in the past about the rules for a good remake or reboot or homage to a formula, but after actually sitting down and reviewing this film, I think I've just made a case for why remakes just shouldn't be done at all. Reboots are really the way to go. Unless you're remaking something that wasn't good to begin with, all you're going to do with the remake is give people something that's less good than the original. And what's the point? King Kong has a lot of story problems and logical inconsistencies that were a product of the time the original was made. It's pretty bad, but I wouldn't go so far as to say it's insulting. At best, it's a faithful remake to the original, but who needs that? The only thing this managed to do for me was to create a new rule for remakes. When it comes to the good films, just don't bother.